JT Crowley is talking books. On the show, you'll hear from emerging talent and seasoned veterans from around the world.
Hello, I'm JT Crowley, and today on my show, I have got Dr. Kolb on to talk about his book, The Human Mind, A Psychological View of Theological Concepts. And when you look at his book, you'll see the author's name is Eric J. Kolb. His doctorate is in philosophy, but for the purpose of this podcast, he's quite happy for me to call him Eric. So that's what I'm going to do. Eric lives in Germany. He comes from Oberkirchen in Germany. And he wasn't always in Germany. He was actually born in Pittsburgh in the United States of America. And he moved to Germany. And I'll let him tell you why if he wants to, everybody. But I'm just going to invite him onto the show. And I'm going to ask him to briefly let him tell us a little bit about himself. And then we're going to go into his books. So, Eric, come and join me on the show.
Yes, thank you very much.
It's a great pleasure to have you on. And the little chats that we've been having beforehand has just been wonderful. And I've learned so much about you. And when I've looked at your book, I'm thinking it's just absolutely amazing, everybody. The depth that Eric has gone into in these books is just absolutely stunning. But I want the listeners, the viewers, to know just a little bit about yourself, Eric. So could you just tell us, who you are?
Who I am. Well, like you said, I'm a philosopher, but actually my PhD is in psychology, not philosophy. But yeah. That's why I didn't correct you, because I'm also a philosopher. I'm a theologian. I'm a scientist. Before that, I was an actor. I was a circus performer, street performer. I'm a single father of 3 wonderful girls. Who are just, the pinnacle of all my achievements. So that's me. And I'm a chess player.
But, when I looked at the chats that we've had, and you have done a variety of things in your life, you certainly have. And as your life progresses, I've found, looking at your profiles and looking at your life, I found it truly awe-inspiring and very eye-opening.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. So anyway, let's get on to the book, shall we, Eric? So this book of yours, The Human Mind, A Psychological View of Theological Concepts, is, I understand, Eric, to be the first of a series of 4 books, which you say in your introduction. You were compelled to write while you were still writing your first book, The Psychology of God. Now, we will briefly touch on that one, everybody, towards the end. There are 9 chapters in this inspiring book of yours, and we will look at a couple of the chapters just to give, you, the listeners, the viewers, a flavour of what this book is about, because that's the whole idea. It's not to give the book away. If you want to know what's in the book, go and buy it. Can't do a better marketing pitch than that, can I? But before I open the book, I'm curious, I'm intrigued. You could say as to why have you written this book, basically? That's what I want to know. Why?
Well, the simple answer to that, I just felt it as a calling of God to start writing. Also, I can't do anything else. One thing, when I was mentioning who I was, I didn't mention I'm also suffering from muscular dystrophy, because is that who I am? Or it's certainly a part of me, but not really who I am. But the simple fact of the matter is, the only thing that works on me very well is my mind and my fingers. On this hand, I have to put the hand on the computer, and then I can type, like that. And That's what I do. I love learning. I love researching. When someone suggests like a chapter of a book, I read the volume. I like everything. Just dive in. I'm a little bit excessive that way, and I just started collecting information, and I learned how to, after I did my PhD, I realized, oh, researching is fun. Finding things out is fun. When I find a question, then I dig and dig and dig until, um, I'm never satisfied with the amount of information, amount of knowledge I have about something. The more I learn about it, the more I learn, more questions I have about it, and it becomes a little bit of Sisyphus-Arbeit is German. There's never ending. It keeps going and going. I have a question, a research question, but that's the nature of science. You develop a research question, then experiment to test that question. You may or may not answer that question, but in the process, 100 other questions will come up. So if you are lucky enough to answer the one research question, you will probably also discover 100 more questions that you need to follow up on. So that's what I do. I research, study, and follow and follow and follow.
So is this book of yours, The Human Mind, is this a collection of your research from both your scientific experience and your theological experience?
Oh, it goes even back further to that, to my childhood, to my life as before I used to be an athlete. I used to run. Wrestling was my main sport, but I used to have strength and endurance. And it was during that time as an athlete that I learned to just work my butt off physically, train my body. And I apply the same kind of workout schedule to my mind and to my emotions as well. And I realized, the human is made out of heart, body, mind, and soul. And that became the central theme of this. And that was a chapter in my first book, The Psychology of God. I realized one chapter of the heart, body, mind, and soul is not enough to do the topic justice. And so I decided to write a book on each of these because they're separate but integrated to the point you have to look at it from each side. For example, in my book, The Human Mind, I have a chapter on consciousness. In my book, The Human Soul, I also have a chapter on consciousness. And it's the same topic, but from two different directions. And there's hardly any overlap of the information. It's just the other side.
Yeah, because behind you there, the mind, the heart, the soul, the body, these are the core, the fundamental core issues around your books.
Right.
Each one. And so the human mind is the mind one. So let's open this chapter. Let's open this book, shall we, everybody? We're on mind.
Mind, yeah.
Eric, let's go to chapter 1. Now, as I said, there are 9 chapters here. We're not going to do all 9 chapters. We're going to do chapters 1, 4, and 8, everybody. And if you like the sound of that, then we'll go and buy the book and see what all the other chapters are about. Eric, let's go to chapter 1, belief.
Okay.
The lens of reality. You start this chapter by saying everything we perceive, everything that enters our minds through our senses, and everything we experience is first filtered through our belief system. Would you care to substantiate that? And where's your philosophical mind coming from here?
Well, my area of, when I was working as a psychologist, my main area was development, child development, how cognitive, emotional, social emotion, physical development. And when we think about the development of the mind, from childhood to adulthood, everything that goes in the mind comes in through our senses and there it's processed, and practically the bowl in which it's all mixed in is our belief system. If I believe in God, then I see the world this way. If I don't believe in God I see the world that way. If I believe in whatever, it doesn't matter what, all the little things, not only the big question, God or no God, but whether driving with a seatbelt is necessary or not. Even these little things, it directs our lives in different directions. Whether we believe, sugar is very, very bad, or in moderation, okay. If we believe Christmas trees are great or unimportant, that's going to be a little thing that throughout our life is going to give us a direction here or there, here or there. So all our belief system, all of our core beliefs is how we see reality. And then essentially there is really no knowledge. We can't really know anything. All we can do is believe something with a certain degree of certainty. I believe the sun will come up tomorrow, but I don't know that. I believe that my name is Eric Kolb, but maybe I was switched. Most likely I look like my father. I look like my other. I don't look so much like my other brother, so maybe not. We can never really know anything. And what's interesting about that, science has come to the same conclusion. If you take a look at mathematics, Gödel's incompleteness theorem says just that. A statement can be true or false, but a true statement can be provable or improvable, but still true. And that's proven in mathematics. And so is it also in our lives. We just start believing things, and as we develop, that makes us who we become.
Still sticking on chapter 1, you break it up under various subheadings. Children's belief in God, created to believe, belief is a choice, belief in God versus science. So that's interesting to me, that is. And you subdivide again to talk about anthropic, cosmological principles. I'm created to know God, and you even touch upon a critical examination of Darwinian evolution. And for me, so in this opening chapter of yours, Eric, you've got some pretty powerful viewpoints here. Would you like to tell us why the deep philosophical subject matters here, and are they important to you, so much so you've written this book?
Yeah, well, each of those I could, that chapter had, each of those I could expand on a lot. So if I just go briefly over it, the section Child's Belief in God, I address that because a lot of people who do not believe in God will say, we only believe in God because we hear that as children, and children they believe things easily. They believe in the Tooth Fairy, they believe in Santa Claus and Anne. And then later, they find out none of that's true. And a lot of people like to put God in there with it too. But you can put everything in there, actually. That's what it is. And there was I mentioned a specific series of experiments. I can't remember the author of who did these experiments, but they found the conclusion was people who believe in God tend to be to rely more on intuitive forms of thinking, and people who do not believe in God rely on rational thinking. And the authors wanted to more or less say, if you believe in God, it's because you're not rational. You're not thinking rationally. You're thinking intuitively. And that's just not a fair assessment of the facts. It is our intuitive thinking that makes humans so intelligent. If we only relied on our rational thinking, we would not be where we are. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if God created humans the way we are so created that we first develop an intuitive form of belief system, intuitive thinking, which is why children believe so easily, and then later a rational belief system that begins to question our intuitive beliefs. And that's scientific facts studied, had no problem, but that's exactly also what the Bible says when Jesus says, in order to get into heaven, you have to be like a child. I always, people know that verse, but they don't really know what it means. It's not really too much discussed in sermons. It's often said, oh, because children are just so wonderful, and they are, but
at times,
when it gets down to it, when I debate about the belief existence of God, you cannot know. He will not let himself know, because then what's the point of faith? What's the point of belief? There would be none if, he was on Twitter. He is actually. The real, if God was like right there for everyone to see, we would not need to have faith, hope, or love. Everything would be irrelevant as life is now. That's going to come, but we have to get to that point as a society. So it's important that we understand we are created as humans to want to believe in something, in anything. And we hear the voice of God calling us this way. We hear the voice of money pulling us another way, or sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or whatever these days. Everything's pulling us in different direction. The question is, what are you going to listen to? Where are you intuitively? Because then you can't rationalize. Who do I listen to? This person or this person or this person? Am I really going to research everything person A says against person B? Well, you probably should, but no one does. They just, they go this way, or they go that way.
It's a bit like, isn't it? You're in a room and there's lots of doors to that room. Which door do I go through?
Yeah. And so essentially belief is a choice. People choose to believe what they want to, and then they look for evidence to support that belief. And I do the same thing. Even as I pointed out in the book, I'm doing the same thing in that book, but at least I'm aware of it. And although faith has to be blind, it does not need to be ignorant. That's why I've studied Darwinian evolution. I've read from Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and Klaus Lawrence, three world famous atheists. And I've learned more about God from them in the last 10 years than I have in Sunday school, hearing the same thing over and over there. I don't just listen to what people say that agree with me, because I'm not going to learn anything. They're saying the same things I already believe. I want to hear what the other people are thinking.
You go and search things out.
Exactly. And so is my faith. It's just as blind as anyone else who never opens up any book. Mine's not as ignorant. I understand science. I understand how the theory of Darwinian evolution came about. And the reason it came, the question was, the research question for Darwinian evolution was, how could life have come to be if there were no creator? So they take the fossils and say, well, we have all these fossils. If we put them in like a tree format so that one comes into the other, then, this is how it could have happened if there were no creator. But that's the the premise, not the conclusion. That's where they started, and then they began thinking. But if you take the fossils and put them back parallel, where I think they belong, then you see, okay, this is how it was. And it's just a better fit because we get more and more fossils. They keep having to change the tree. There's not so long ago, someone found something that had soft tissue in it. It's like, wait, that can't be because it has to be billions of years old. And this would mean it's only tens of thousands of years old and it doesn't fit in our tree. So there must be a mistake. The data that doesn't fit into the Darwinian evolution theory, there was a mistake, or they test it again and again and again until they get the result they want. That's just, this kind of scientific method would not be accepted in any other area of science. If a medicine goes wrong in the test phase, they don't keep testing it and see, well, maybe the medicine's okay and that person was sick anyway. No, they stop it. But, people believe what they want to as a choice and look for evidence to fit that belief. And
sure. Eric, let's go to chapter 4 here, which you've headed up, Theory of Mind. Mm-hmm. Now, I found your theories, thinking here, really engaging and probably bordering on compelling. So I wanted to pick your brains here. Okay. Unearth the thought process you adopted when you constructed this chapter. You start off by saying theory of mind, which you reference as TOM in brackets, is a confusing term because it is both a theory and an abstract construct. What are you saying to convey to the reader in this chapter? Why is this chapter here?
Okay, well, again, it's about development. Theory of mind is something that happens to each of our humans. It's a theory in that we believe that's the point where our memories as adults kick in. So you can't remember the birth coming through the birth canal, your first birthday, second birth. Our earliest memories go back to a certain point, and the idea is that point is when the theory of mind kicks in, and it really just kicks in. There's different tests when they test a lot of different children from ages 3 to 4 on different theory of mind tests. They find that all the children, the child either has a theory of mind, knows that meaning it knows it is a person, its mind is different from the mind of another child, or it doesn't. It fails all the tests or it passes all the tests. And that hardly ever happens in anything else. You get a bell curve with most things. But with theory of mind, you get two parallel groups. They either have it or they don't. And that's the moment where a child just realizes, oh, hey, I think this, but they think that. That's.
I'm also interested, still on chapter 4 here, Eric. You broaden your theories by touching on autistic spectrum disorder. You also cover off, you discuss, however you want to phrase it, proof, factors involved in the theory of mind development, plus more theories. Eric, can you explain to the readers, determine the difference here, what you're getting at, because this is a deep, complex chapter, isn't it? And especially when you've gone on to touching autistic spectrum disorders.
Well, I addressed autism spectrum disorder because that was the primary population that I worked with as a psychologist in child development. That's really what I did mostly. And no one really knows what causes autism. It's a complete mystery. It's not vaccines. I'll go on the record and say it's not vaccines and say that. But
no, it's not.
A lot of people think it is, or gluten or whatever. We don't know. The simple fact is we don't know. It is linked some way, somehow, with theory of mind. That children with autism don't really understand that someone else has a different perspective. We notice in that's so I addressed autism to actually describe theory of mind and the behavioral problems that arise. For instance, playing a simple board game. A child without theory of mind will get really upset when they lose a game because the child wants to win the game and doesn't understand that everyone else wants to win the game. I want to win the game, so everyone else should want that I win the game. And if I don't win the game, something has gone terribly wrong. You guys didn't play right, because that's not the way it's good. They don't understand. I write there another example of how to test the theory of mind that's kind of fun, that I do with a lot of children. And this works even if the child is nonverbal. We play with dolls. And I call it Barbie and Lacey. I've only raised girls, so I know Barbie, like everything about Barbie. So Barbie and Lacey is Barbie's younger sister. Lacey says she has a little treasure, okay, and shows Barbie the treasure, and we're playing dolls, and we're just playing dolls, and it's usually a marshmallow or something. And Lacey puts the marshmallow under the pillow, okay, and then I'm playing with the child, and the dolls do this, and then they go to soccer practice, and the dolls are taken out of the story. And then I do briefly, I address the child now again, not as Barbie and Lacey, but as Dr. Kolb and the child. And I say, hey, let's play a trick, okay? Look at this. I'm going to take the marshmallow out from the pillow, and I'm going to hide it under the bed, okay? And the child sees that and understands. The child knows now the marshmallow is no longer under the pillow, it is under the bed. And then we go back to doll playing, and we come back from soccer practice. And then if the child comes back and says, it goes to, oh, where's my marshmallow? It's gone. It's no longer under the pillow. Then the child understands that although the child knows that the marshmallow is under the bed, the character she's playing, Barbie or Lacey, cannot know that. But if a child does not have a theory of mind, she'll come back and say, oh, my marshmallow, wonderful, I can eat that now. And goes right under the bed where the Barbie cannot know that it's under the bed. That's essentially what theory of mind means. To understand that my mind is completely subjective and no one knows what I know what I'm thinking or feeling, and I cannot know what anyone else is thinking and feeling.
It's like us two at the moment, you don't know what I'm thinking. How am I going to put the next question to you? And I don't know how you're going to answer it.
Exactly.
Theory of mind. There you go, everyone. So let's move on to chapter 8, everybody. Okay. And which is towards the end of the book. Developmental mind and behavior. You start this chapter by taking a bit of a swipe, I think, at authors over what's evolution and what's development. Mm. You say development is the field of psychology that interests you the most, and that development in all fields of science has your attention. Why the criticism of authors, and what relevance does this chapter have in your book? Tell us.
Well, in a lot of atheist scientists, or I would say evangelical atheists, they like to throw around the word evolution, and they describe processes and use the word evolution to describe it. And that's not what they're describing, is not evolution, but development. For instance, a caterpillar does not evolve into a butterfly. It develops into a butterfly. If we did not know what a caterpillar, there's a caterpillar that spins a cocoon, what's going to come out, we don't know, then we could talk about evolution if you want. But we know it's going to be a butterfly because it develops into a butterfly. But so they try to, get a point here and there, try to make, sleight of hand and say, see, there's evolution. I'm like, what? No. And I think it's a little bit unfair because they got to know. I know that. Anyone who studies developmental process in psychology or biology knows the difference. But they try to make it sound like evolution when it's actually only development.
That's an interesting viewpoint. I've never thought of it that way. Now you've mentioned that, just purely by using that simple method of the caterpillar and the butterfly, I would have said, until you said, I would have said evolves into a butterfly. Now I'm starting thinking, well, maybe it develops into a butterfly. So Eric, like all the chapters in your book, you talk about certain issues under the main headings. Chapter 8, you head up development of mind and behavior, and you touch on areas like strength in weakness. Our actions are a result of our minds and our hearts. The mind's reboot switch, mind and behavior, intuitive belief in God, and scientific psychological studies on cognitive behavior. When I look at this chapter, you address some very significant areas that affect us all. And so I thought about this, thinking, so he's talking about lots of issues here. So I'm going to ask you, is this chapter, again, an important chapter, and what you're saying here is so important to you that you need to get this message out?
Yes, definitely. This is where psychology diverges from a relationship with God. Psychology will tell you, hey, you can do it. The power is in you. You control your destiny. You can do it. And the psychologist, tries to inspire the person or find ways so that the person can succeed on that, with their own heart, body, mind, and soul. But that's not at all what Jesus said. When you go to the Sermon on the Mount, he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs are the kingdom of God." What it means to be a Christian means to admit, damn it, I can't do it. It's too hard. There's no way. Life is deadly. It will kill you, literally. Life stress. There's no way you're just gonna get hammered down. You do not have the strength. You're not gonna make it in this world. But trust in God. Let Him become your strength, and you become unstoppable. And that's where strength and weakness. I have muscular dystrophy. My body is, look at it. Can't even. I can't stand to pee. I can't stand long enough to pee. But not despite that, because of that, my mind has become so strong. My heart has become so strong. I've become, nothing can break me down. Not even illness, divorce, difficulties, this, that. Look, I live in the same world as everyone else, And I don't know, it's just like nothing can stop me. I just feel a power, and it's not from me. That's the thing. It's not like, oh, you're just, you're a hard worker. Yeah, but what is it that, my motivation is not to sell a lot of books. I've given away more than I've stolen. It's not to be, it's simply God. That's the only motivation, to do what I've been created to do, my purpose in life, my meaning in life. If you follow that, if you find out what your purpose in life is and follow that, then nothing else matters.
Okay.
You will be happy and successful all your life, regardless of what happens.
Let's go to, because you said in the right away start, yes, you wrote this book actually whilst you were doing the other book, Eric, I said at the short start of this podcast that this book of yours, The Human Mind, a Psychological View of the Theological Concept, is the first in the series of 4. And of course, yes, you've got mind, heart, soul, and body. They're the books behind there.
Yeah.
And that you were compelled to write whilst you were still writing your first book, The Psychology of God. So let's very briefly turn to this book. There are 6 chapters in it. Chapter 1 is the introduction. Chapter 2, the 4 components, heart, body, mind, and soul. And here again, we've got heart, mind, soul, and body. Models of development, learning behaviors, faith, hope, and love, living and growing in the Holy Spirit. Why is this book so important to you? So much so, it was your first, feelings, your foray, your first rooting out into writing books.
I started that one, and I didn't know who I was writing to. I didn't know what I was going to write about. I just knew I was going to write. And the method I used to put that book together was I first I made a list of different concepts that one could view from both a psychological and theological perspective: development, prayer, religion, belief, just a list of those. And then I wrote an essay a week for a year, a 5-page essay. I was very strict about that. That meant the 5th page had to be started. And then after a year, I had 52 5-page essays that I shuffled together into what became the Psychology of God. But in the process, I realized, okay, heart, body, mind, and soul, that's actually what I was supposed to do. So I shuffled that one together, cleaned it up a little bit, put it in a book form, sent it off, it's done now. So that's kind of the introduction book, wide range. In that book, I also talk a little bit about my life, my testimony, about having muscular dystrophy, about when I was first diagnosed with it. They said I had 2 years to live. That was definitely, that was now 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. So definitely a life impacting event on that, because I just then decided, all right, I got 2 years to live. I'm going to just completely be obedient to the Holy Spirit these last 2 years, because I only got 2 left. I accepted that. I accepted my physical death. And that's exactly what it also means to be a Christian, to, what the Bible says, if you save your life, you lose it. If you give up your life, that's how you save it. And that's what I was essentially forced to do, to accept, okay, I'm going to die. I'm here in Europe. I'm having a good time. I'm a street performer. I'm talking a lot. I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm just going to keep doing it. And okay, I'll just fall over at some point. And that'll be it. Okay. I was okay with that. And I just kept following the Holy Spirit, and I didn't die. I became a member of the first group of clowns that performed in hospitals. I became a clown doctor. where as a clown doctor, I'm helping children with humor cope with cancer, leukemia, AIDS, and these children are dying, and I am too. Well, so I thought, or so I was, so we all are actually, all the time. And using humor to get through that. And that's where, that was around the time the Patch Adams movie came up. So clowns in hospitals just exploded. And at the same time, I'm losing the ability to walk. I can't stand on stage, and I know my career as an actor and performer is over. My juggling career was already gone as a circus performer because I only had one arm then. The other arm stopped working. So I said, all right, if humor is the best medicine, then I'm going to study it as medicine. I want to know how to prescribe it. I want to know the right doses. I want to know for what it's good, where to use it. And so I started studying psychology, and humor was actually my topic of interest during my master's, my undergraduate work. As I was working as a clown therapist, then I graduated and I became a mental health practitioner here in Germany. And humor and my clown skills were really so helpful in my work with children with autism, because a lot of them can't talk. And so we did everything nonverbal, a lot of nonverbal, and I could do that. They're not interested in people, but they're interested in objects. So I can do a sleight of hand magic and make them interested in something, and then get their interest and use my clown skills to form working relationships that I can put into a therapy. But eventually I didn't have the strength to do that anymore. So I said, okay, I can't be that. And then I went back to school, got my PhD, and said, all right, then I'll write books and teach other people how to do that. And that's what I'm doing today.
And the books are fascinating, everybody. They really are. Really are. I thoroughly enjoyed it. What's next for you?
I actually, my next book, The Human Soul, is at the publishers as we speak. So maybe shortly after all this comes out, you can Google Eric Kolb, The Human Mind, The Human Soul, and I've already started on The Human Heart. And after that will be The Human Body. My goal is to write 5 books in 5 years, and I'm on track with that. Got three books down in 3 years, 2 more to go. The Human Heart and The Human Body, I saved those to last because they're going to be easier. My dissertation was on emotional processing, so I got all the research done with that. And by the way, all of my work is written scientific based. I use peer-reviewed articles only, and all these books, except for the Human Body. I'm going to step away from that, and I'm going to talk more about this. Yeah,
why not?
This thing here, because there's no, that's what I know a lot about the body.
Talk from the personal experience. Who do you see as your market for your book? And more importantly, who do you want to read your book?
My market is prideful human knowledge. People who, like I said, belief is a choice. You believe something, you think you know it, and then you stop there. How often, every adult knows, who has a teenager, knows you think you know everything at some point, and then you realize you don't.
You don't.
You're an adult, because then you know everything. But go a step further. Faith is blind, but it doesn't have to be ignorant. So think critically about everything. Whether you believe in God or don't believe in God, think critically, question. People like to say, doubting Thomas sometimes gets a bad rap. Don't be a doubting Thomas. Why not? Jesus wasn't upset when Thomas said, "No, I'm not going to believe until I see the scars in his hands and the wound in the side." When Jesus then appeared, he didn't go, "Ah, Thomas." He wasn't upset. He said, "Look, here. You can see him? Now believe."
And he also went on to say, I believe, that said, yeah, you're fortunate enough to be able to physically see me, yes, and believe. But those that are coming in the future won't be able to see the physical side of me. And so it's up to them to believe. Isn't
Right.
it?
Right. But we can,
Oh, yeah.
Science studies God's creation. Theology studies God. And either way, you can find God through science, or you can find him through the Bible, or you can find him through nature or family or whatever, because
Or through life.
Through life.
Through life. Dr. Cole, thank you so much for this fascinating interview. I've thoroughly enjoyed reading your book. It certainly opened up my mind. And everybody, if you want to, go and research him, go and have a look, go and look at his books, bookstores, Amazon, wherever you want to go and find it, go and have a look. And so as I end the podcast, everybody, as I normally do each time, I'm JT Crowley. Thanks for listening, watching, wherever you're in the world. So until next time, stay safe.